Have you ever thought about whether you're actually doing enough exercise in the midst of your daily routine? There are 5 crucial early warning signs to watch out for, and today we're going to explain how to detect them.
But of course, that's not all, because you should understand what's happening inside you. We will explain everything to you thoroughly and offer you the solution. You'll definitely feel a lot better afterward.
Why is it that people nowadays are moving less and less frequently?
That's the way our lifestyle is. We sit around all day long and we just walk around to where we need to go, to the bathroom, to the kitchen, and back to the desk. And unfortunately, that's often as much movement as we get during the day. This leads to a multitude of deficits, which inevitably have consequences.
These days, we tend to drive a lot more than we used to in the past. We walk significantly less and often choose to take the elevator instead of using the stairs. So overall, if I were to sum it up, we've gradually become quite a bit lazier than before. Can you recognize this in your life? Additionally, how it personally affects you is something you'll discover very soon.
Early warning sign number 1. The tension is increasing. You notice it right when you get up in the morning. You can't get out of bed. You have to move around a bit until you slowly start to feel like it's getting somewhat better. The neck might feel tense. There could be tension in the back, or it's often noticeable in the buttocks as well. Muscle tensions can be bothersome in a way that is disruptive. Normally, you shouldn't be noticing any tensions. And if you do notice some, then something's already off track.
Yes, and then of course mobility also decreases significantly as a result. And this can be felt especially in the arm and shoulder area. We can't just put on a coat or sweater so easily anymore. We don't just reach into the closets like we used to.
And we're not quite as agile as before. Getting in or getting out of the car has become even more challenging. All of this is decreasing flexibility, which is also an early warning sign. Early warning sign number 3, strength and stability decline. Many people say that when they walk, they feel like their legs are no longer functioning properly. There seems to be a lack of strength, and you want to sit down but have trouble getting back up. Especially when getting up from a chair, it gets harder.
Yes, and generally speaking, people often say they feel more insecure. For instance, if they have to walk along a narrow path somewhere, they might find it significantly harder to maintain a proper sense of balance like they used to.
Also, getting up is hard.
Exactly. And above all, they can't walk for as long as they used to. That's also interesting. They manage to do it, I don't know, for 5 minutes, 10 minutes, then they start to notice that their legs hurt and that it begins to feel unpleasant and no longer fun. These are all signs. I don't know if they're early warning signs, but they usually come together. These are definitely signs that you're not moving enough.
Many people just see it as aging. If you're getting older and then this happens, they figure, well, it's merely what time inevitably does to everyone. However, very, very often, it is only indirectly related to age. A lot of individuals are reaching old age or are already older and yet still possess strength. It also has to do with your fitness level and is a warning sign that you can do something about it.
Yes, and what is very often considered an early warning sign from my perspective is the presence of pain in these group of people.
Naturally, we often say that tension tends to increase, mobility tends to decrease, strength diminishes, and pain automatically follows these changes. So you can think of it like this. Pain is the product of tension that keeps growing, and eventually the tension culminates in pain. You know about this from tension headaches. Initially, there's a noticeable tension that you can feel. It starts with a little pain, then gradually it begins to hurt more, eventually leading to very intense headaches. And actually, it's quite similar with all sorts of pains throughout the entire body. For instance, when you're out jogging, you become aware of your knee, and it suggests something may not be quite right as it should be. And a few days later, it keeps increasing more and more, and then there's the very first noticeable pain. And wherever you focus on the body, it consistently shows how it's feeling. The moment it starts to experience discomfort in any particular manner, that's too harmful, it causes pain. And pain is also a language.
But what's also quite interesting is you just mentioned that the tensions are also increasing. And at this point, I would like to bring up an additional topic to act as an early warning indicator. That's the energy loss. It really does make one curious. What significant impact might the tension have in relation to the energy loss that these individuals so frequently report experiencing?
The loss of energy is often closely linked to the aging process. And we simply attribute this to the fact that as more tension builds up in the body because we move too little, muscles pull against each other when they should actually be giving in. And that's energy that ultimately is no longer available to the body. It's even more about the fact that at the moment when there is less energy from the body being translated into movement, that energy in one way or another has to get stuck somewhere within the system. Where does it end up getting stuck? It gets stuck in the arthritis, in the wear and tear processes of the body, because there's too much pressure in the joints. And that's why energy loss actually occurs with pain, with increased tension, with weakness, with all these symptoms. The body's overall energy keeps decreasing. And we generally notice that as soon as someone takes action against it, the body's total energy definitely starts to rise and increase again.
I distinctly remember, I can recall so many different patients where you applied and effectively implemented the therapy approach or method. You treated them by applying pressure using the osteopressure technique, and then they remarkably stood up, visibly showing improvement. Did you regularly ask them, how are your pains doing now? But can you actually recall the full details of their responses?
Yeah, I feel more stable. I feel stronger. I feel more energetic.
It always felt like I somehow had more energy. That always fascinated me, as I find this connection very interesting. I'm sure you're wondering now, what steps you can take about these early warning signs so that you can confidently regain your mobility?
Basically, it's quite simple. We mentioned at the beginning that what's missing is movement. And those were the early warning signs that arise from too little movement. How exactly does it function or show up when you're not moving enough on a daily basis in your everyday life? If you don't move enough, muscles tend to shorten over time. This is because too little movement means certain joint angles are simply no longer used. This means that muscles and fascia become shorter. And when they become shorter, it leads to more tension, more pressure in the joint, and in addition to pain, greater wear and tear occurs, and so on. Essentially, the focus now really needs to be on restoring and expanding the range of motion in these joint angles. For example, you don't just move your arm from here to here, but you also fully extend it and fully bend it. And that's typically not included in everyday life activities, so it really needs to be incorporated, such as the exercises that we teach to people to help them feel better again.
Something straightforward to remember. When faced with a set of stairs, don't see it critically and think, oh God, no. Instead, try to embrace the situation, feel a sense of joy, and make it a habit to use the stairs. Because climbing stairs is such a great exercise, and when it's paired with our exercises for more flexibility for the whole body, my goodness. You know what? Those early warning signs vanish really quickly, and you'll find yourselves incredibly flexible again.
So the path is really quite straightforward to start moving your joints in all directions and therefore regain the flexibility the body naturally should have. And you can achieve that through our exercises. When you engage in them consistently, then all the symptoms we've talked about will steadily decrease over time. What remains is a completely pain-free, relaxed, and much more flexible, agile body, with a good body awareness and lots of energy, especially for movement. For example, for the stairs.
Great, right?
So to summarize, what should you be mindful of? Are tensions increasing for me? Does mobility start to decrease? Does the strength and stability in the legs, for instance, begin to diminish? Do pains appear for no apparent reason? And does your overall energy decrease?
Yes, those are the 5 early warning signs. Was there perhaps an early warning sign that made you feel particularly connected? It would be wonderful if you could write them down in the comments section below. Maybe it's not just one warning sign, but several.